And now I'd like you guys to pause and try to think, what do you think Black's best move is in this position? It's an absolutely mind-boggling move. And this is not the game, by the way. This is just one of the lines that could have happened, and it was so interesting that I just had to show it to you guys. So go ahead and pause and think through for a second. Black's completely winning, but what move should you play? Welcome to round 5 of the candidates. I'm going to recap 3 out of the 4 games. We were close, guys. We were really close to having some crazy fireworks in some of these games. Unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, because it was still an interesting day. The games were very interesting. I thoroughly enjoyed watching them. If you didn't get a chance, I'm going to take you up to speed and focus on a couple of the key moments. But we were really close to having some crazy stuff happening, and it sort of petered out in a lot of the games. So anyway, let's go ahead and take a look. We're going to start with Caruana and Rapport. I'm not actually sure how to pronounce that, but we had a Sicilian, and we're mainline, and then boom, G4 happens. This move has not been played very often at all. So this was actually, this is a move that's common, but usually it happens later. So usually white's gonna kind of develop some pieces, maybe castle, f3 and then g4, or f4 and then g4 later. It's definitely a common move, but playing it this early is definitely weird, right? But Fabiano was like, I'm not scared. I'm gonna, make it very clear what my intentions are. I'm going to attack on the king side, whether or not you castle, whether or not your king is over there. I'm gonna expand over here right away. So pretty interesting start to the game. Richard didn't really spend a lot of time on that move, so he was kind of either had seen this or wasn't totally surprised, right? So the game goes on, and right around here is where it started to get pretty interesting. So bishop to g2. Both players are still in the center with their king, which is rare. Like I said, normally white would have been castled already, usually to the queen side. A lot of times black tries to castle king side. In this game, both players are like, no, I'm not in a hurry to castle. And maybe it had something to do with that g4 move super early. But we get this very interesting position, knight to g6. And it's funny, here the computer just says it's dead equal, 0.0, which is funny because there's a lot that could happen. And yet the computer's like, no, it's just equal. So rook to f1, bishop to c6. This is a kind of a nice move because you're defending this pawn, also defending here, which in some cases after white castles or brings the rook over, you might have a checkmate threat there if the queen ever wanted to leave somewhere. And so kind of a prophylactic move, defending that ahead of time just in case anything happens. And also, like I said, defending this, which means now a5, a4 is a possibility. And that's exactly what we see. g5, a5, f4, a4. So white is pushing the pawns over here like they've been doing for most of the game, and then black is pushing over here. The funny thing about this to me is that normally when this happens, the kings are already kind of over there, right? Like the black king would be here and you're attacking the king with your pawns. Sorry, my arrows are all over the place. Or white's king would be here and you're attacking the king. In this case, the kings are just chilling in the center while all these pawns sort of get pushed on the sides. So I thought that was kind of funny. Rook to d1. I think it makes a lot of sense. Like, do you really want to castle and put your king over here? Now, it looked like it was actually a playable move, and so white probably could have castled here, but rook to d1 I think makes, more sense. So bishop to b4, queen to d4, and now is where it started to look like this was going to be a very exciting game. Queen to a5, allowing queen takes g7. And do you know what the engine says this position is? Completely equal. I guess you can see the evaluation bar there. Completely equal, 0.0, which is funny because there's a lot happening here, right? So we get a3. Black is trying to take advantage of these dark squares. You notice if white capture the pawn, then this guy is being captured, and there's this nice little fork. So that's kind of the idea. So of course white can't capture that. Plays king to f2, which is a good move. It just gets out of the pin completely and moves the king to a more safe square over here on f2. And now we have this line, which I assume both players saw for quite some time, and that's what the engine is saying. That's why it's saying 0.0. You take here, the knight comes back because now it was being attacked. e5, and after f5, which looks great for white. I mean, this looks amazing. You're getting your pawns rolling. You're attacking the knight with tempo. You're about to get some sort of a checkmate threat, right? Bishop to f8, and guess what? The queen's trapped. And so you have to go back and forth, and we just get a draw. So it's too bad. I mean, it was still an interesting game, but, we were kind of hoping that maybe Fabiano would have played something besides f5 just to mix it up and give the queen a place to run to, and the game could have went on. But he's almost leading the tournament, so a draw, makes a lot of sense, just kind of staying at the front of the pack, sort of. So this game was a draw. Let's move on to the next one. Rajabov against Ding. Now, this game starts out, and it's kind of like, okay, everybody's developing. All right, everybody's kind of just doing some regular stuff, putting your pieces on good squares. We have a little bit of tension here, but it's still very equal position. Nobody has really committed too much at this point. And so we get this very strategic battle. I'm not going to get into all the details here. I want to get you to the interesting moment of this game. F4. Now, this is where things start to get a little bit exciting because white is this is a very committal move, right? Like, your king is pretty safe. As soon as you play F4, it's like, okay, now you've got a diagonal that's open. You've got a rank that's open, right? And this pawn can never go back, right? It's the thing about pawns in chess. Once you make a decision like that, you're committed. Knight to c4, queen to b7. Still pretty equal, but slowly and surely, black starts to make a little bit of progress, okay? And the key moment really happened, let's see, where was it? Right around here, okay? We start to have some more pawn moves around the king. Black is just kind of relocating. We get a few repetitions there, but not 3 in a row. And now we have this nice hole on g4, right? This is a dream spot for this knight, okay? The pawns have been advanced, and now black has a very nice opportunity. So, knight to g4, there we go. And again, we get some repeating, knight to g4, b4. All right, what do you notice about this move? There's another hole on c4, right? And so this is the important thing about pawns, especially at this top level. If you give your opponent anything, they will find a way to take advantage of that. And so shortly thereafter, here we go, the rook comes to c4. And so look at these pieces. Very, very dangerous now for white, right? Because black has these outposts. And if you look at black's position, there's not really the same type of weaknesses where white can take advantage and put these knights somewhere, right? So, the other thing that you need to pay attention to at this moment in the game, where this is move 36, and notice the time of the player. So we've got 18 minutes and 6 minutes, and they still have to get to move 40. So we're starting to get to that moment in the game where you don't have a lot of time, and you get this very complicated position, okay? So keep that in mind. Queen to b7, so this diagonal is very important. We're going to see that in just a second. Queen to d3. f6 is just kind of a sort of like a waiting move, right? Rajabov has 5 minutes now to figure out what to play for the next 3 moves. He goes king to h3, queen c8, e5, and this was actually a big mistake. And this is move 39. So he only had a couple minutes. I think he had, 1 minute to make 2 moves. So he spends about 20-something seconds and plays this. Has 1 minute left. Ding has 9 minutes left, but has to navigate this kind of complicated position. And the big decision is he going to take the pawn or is he going to push on f5, right? This is kind of what he needs to decide. And he thinks for a bit and decides to take it, which is not the best choice. Although, if he follows that up with bishop takes d4, he would be fine. Now, at this moment in the game, Ding saw something that he didn't like. He was calculating something that I believe he thought was a forced win, and then realized it wasn't. And you could see it on his face, just, a little bit upset with himself, right? And so I think that was definitely weighing on him and getting into his head a little bit, okay? And what I want to talk to you guys about is, had he played the move f5, because there's a fascinating position here that I don't think I've ever seen quite like this before. So if he would have played the move f5, one of the key lines here is knight to g5. So white takes advantage of the hole that's been created by putting a knight there. Trades the bishop for the knight, which is another key thing, which we'll come back to in a second. Knight to d5. And first of all, take a look at black's pieces. Boom, boom, boom. Look at all of these outposts. Everything is defended by a pawn. It's absolutely amazing. Queen to e2. Queen to c6. Queen to f3. Rook comes down, threatening to come over here at some point. So king to g2. And now I'd like you guys to pause and try to think, what do you think black's best move is in this position? It's an absolutely mind-boggling move. And this is not the game, by the way. This is just one of the lines that could have happened, and it was so interesting that I just had to show it to you guys. So go ahead and pause and think through for a second. Black's completely winning, but what move should you play? Well, if you had a chance to think through that, the best move for black in this position is the move queen to a8. This is like one of the puzzles that I would show you guys from a stud, like a composed puzzle. That's what this is looking like. What's the point? You know what the point is? The point is that white is basically in Zugzwang and has like no moves, which is amazing. You've got all these pieces on the board, and it's Zugzwang. So check it out. Let's start with this. Well, first of all, the pawns obviously can't move, okay, unless you're going to push this pawn, which doesn't really do anything. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. But let's just go one by one. Let's say the knight takes the pawn, which looks like a free pawn. What's black going to do? You can really do either knight check, and after this capture, the queen is pinned, so it can't take your knight. You have to move your king, and then you just simply take the queen. Okay, and if you try to move your king over here, rook to f1, and again, after the king moves, you're going to take the queen, and it also leads to checkmate. All right, so that's kind of the idea, really, with any knight move. I don't care where you move your knight to. One of these knights is going to come in here, and then white's toast, okay, because of the check. You can't do that. All right, so that's a kind of a big threat. We talked about the knight. Let's say the queen tries to move just to get away. Let's say the queen moves over, I don't know, let's say to e2. Oh, that's checkmate in one move. You've got a double check. The king can't move. It's just game over. So if the queen moves anywhere, I don't care where you're going to move it to, you're in big trouble. All right? So we've talked about the knight. We've talked about the queen. Can't move, can't move. Let's talk about these guys. Let's say the bishop moves. Let's just choose a natural looking move like bishop to c5, right? Looks like a nice square. Well, by moving there, you opened up this square for my rook from black. Rook over. Guess what? Queen's got to move now, or I'm going to just take it. You can try to block, but again, I'm going to take it, which is forcing the queen to move. And you know what happens once the queen moves? It's all over. The knight comes in. Game over. It's checkmate in one move. For example, this is one option for you. There's other ones, but that's just showing you that remember, the queen can't move. So by moving the bishop to here, you open up that square, which forces the queen to move, and then white loses. So are you guys seeing how there's just no moves for white? Anything, even if you try to move this rook, here's another example for you. Let's say you play rook to d3 because you're trying to prevent this idea. Well, now there's rook to c2 because you just opened up the c file. And guess what? After the king moves, knight to h2, attacking the queen. And there's this amazing line. Queen takes h5. You play knight to f6. I mean, look at this. This is just crazy stuff. The knight's attacking the queen. You're allowing queen f7 check because after you play king h8, guess what? You've got a checkmate threat that white just can't stop. There's just no way for white to stop this. You can try to block, but you're just going to get captured, whatever you do. And yeah, white's just losing. So this is actually an important point because if we go all the way back, and hopefully you're sticking with me here, we go all the way back to this position. Remember I said queen a8 was the best move? Queen to b7, you might say that's like the same move, right, Nelson? No, it's not. And here's why. Because rook to d3, check, king to g1, this exact same line, knight h2. Now when white plays here, you hit him with this fancy move, going for the whatever, the checkmate. Boom, queen to f7 forces a queen trade because your queen is on b7 instead of a8. You remember last time the king just slid over? Now, nope, you got to trade queens. And guess what happens now? After this trade, it's just kind of an equal endgame. Like it's a rook and a bishop against a rook and a knight. It's amazing, right? So we go back here, and now you can see, or hopefully you can see, why black's best move is queen to a8, not queen to b7. All right? And like I said, there's just no good moves for white. Stockfish says the best try would be bishop to b6. The point is that after rook to c3, you're going to sacrifice your queen and go down here and get, black's queen, although you have to sacrifice the exchange, and this is a completely winning endgame for black. But that's, the best thing that white could do. So I just wanted to show you an amazing line, but obviously not easy to calculate at all, especially when you only have a few minutes on the clock. And so somewhere along the way, something happened in Ding's calculations, and he just didn't feel like f5 was actually good enough, because you are allowing this knight to g5 move. And so if you couldn't see through all, the variations that I just kind of showed, it makes sense why you might sort of bail on that idea and do something else. So he took, game still would have been great for black if he just traded this bishop for this knight. This knight was actually very annoying piece, and trading it off was how black would have kept the advantage. But instead, a little bit of a breakdown. He had to make this move, the 40th move. He only had 5 minutes left, so it wasn't a lot of time, so it's understandable. But played G6, and the advantage completely went away. Watch that eval bar just go from black's winning to equal, and a few moves later, we get some trades, and we just go into a drawn rook ending. So very unfortunate. But that position was just absolutely incredible. So I hopefully you at least enjoyed seeing that. I couldn't believe it when I saw like a Zugzwang where it's like all these pieces are on the board and there's just no good moves. I mean, it was amazing. All right. Having said that, let's go to the last game that I'm going to show you, which was also quite exciting. Hikaru versus, I'm just going to say Nepo because I've been getting a lot of comments about my pronunciation. So we're just going to call him Nepo. All right. Let's see what happened in this game. So we get Petrov. All right, fine. I don't really know a lot of theory about this, so I'm just going to get to the interesting moment in the game. I think they were both pretty comfortable. You can see the time usage. Nobody had really thought too much. And, you know, Hikaru starts thinking a little bit more here. From the commentary that I was listening to, they said he played this before, and he's actually played this exact line, rook to a2. It's kind of a weird-looking move, but he was familiar with it. And Nepo, maybe not so much, or I don't know, maybe he was thinking what he wanted to do. I'm not really sure, but he spent quite a bit of time on this move, bishop f8. Now, dead equal position. Everybody is playing great. It's all equal until this moment right here. So the queen is attacked. Nepo has to make a decision. Where do I move my queen to? And there's a lot of good moves. Actually, any of these three moves is totally fine for black. The position is completely equal. White has like no advantage. But for some reason, Nepo plays queen to e4, which is not a great move because now bishop to f1, guess what? You got to move your queen again. And now it's still, the engine is saying if you play queen b1, it's still pretty equal. There's some interesting things, but queen to g4. And all of a sudden, look at that eval bar, guys. Just look at that. White's winning. And it has to do with the fact that, you know, Nepo just kind of gave away a bunch of free tempos. Now, first of all, let me just say, there must have been some reason, some line that, you know, Nepo was familiar with, where probably queen e4, queen b1, clearly he knew something or saw something that made him think this was a good plan, and then maybe realized after bishop f1, like, actually, I don't really want to go down that path anymore. I don't know. But somehow, something went wrong. You could see it on his face right around this moment in the game, where I believe he spent a little bit of time here, and then some more time here, but really wasn't happy with himself after this position. And it makes sense. I mean, the engine is saying like white's just totally better. So we get this trade. Queen to e4, rook to e2, good move, still with tempo. Queen to d3, there's only really two options here for the black queen. Queen to d3 and queen to b1, there's just no other available squares, right? Like everything else is just kind of like covered by all of white's pieces, okay? And so only two moves, queen to d3 and queen to b1. And Stockfish is saying there's a lot of good moves here. Rook to b2 was one of them. We get a little bit of a repetition here. Rook to e3, d5. So far, Nakamura is playing great. Everything is looking good. And then we get this moment in the game where things just kind of start to get away from him. Now, I haven't watched his recap yet, so I'm not sure what he was thinking. He probably will tell you guys a lot more detail about what's going on than I will. But engine is saying knight to d4 was kind of the move that needed to be played. Just centralizing the knight, attacking the bishop. I mean, it makes sense. It's a very logical move. For some reason, Hikaru decided to go this route and maneuver the knight over here to b3. But after black's able to get the queen back, now it starts to become more comfortable for black. And then after a few more moves, bishop to d2, knight to g6, knight to a5, a small inaccuracy, and look at that evaluation bar. We go from big advantage to white to back to equal. And so, unfortunately, this is basically now just a draw. And as the game goes on, Hikaru, if you check the time, 12 minutes, still had to make 10 moves. Okay, this is only move 30. Had to make 10 more moves, which is about a move per minute. That's not much time at all, you know, in an equal position. And he realized that something went wrong after knight a5, and so we ended up getting the perpetual draw again. So unfortunate. If we go back and kind of analyze this, engine was saying instead of knight to a5, what needed to happen was bishop c3, just putting this bishop on this diagonal, and after, let's just say, for example, queen to d8, bishop to b4, Now, I haven't analyzed this position in depth, so I don't really know myself exactly what's going on. It's not a super easy position to evaluate, but for some reason, the knight a5 plan just, after b6, knight c6, it's just pretty equal, so that wasn't the correct approach. So, unfortunately, we get another draw here in what could have been potentially a win for Hikaru. So, and now that being said, it's still not a terrible result. But at the end of the day, we had 4 draws, no wins, which is a little bit sad, but still some really interesting games. Hopefully you guys enjoyed those recaps. All right, guys, a couple things I forgot to mention. First of all, you can see Nepo is in the lead 3.5 out of 5. If you imagine if Hikaru would have won that game, Hikaru would have had 3 points, and Nepo would have only had 3, and so he would have had a 3-way tie for first. But as it stands, Nepo was in the lead. Then Fabiano, Hikaru, and you can see we have a 3-way tie here for third. So still anybody's tournament. It's still too early to start predicting and figuring out who's going to win, obviously. And so we'll just keep an eye on it. The other thing I was going to say in our game, the top rated move that you guys wanted to play was knight to f3. So I apologize to all of you f3 and f4 players. Knight f3 was definitely more popular. So knight f3 has been played, and I responded by castling kingside. So it is your turn. As always, put your move down in the comments, and whichever one I see the most of or that has the most upvotes, I just sum them all up and I will play that one. So good luck, and see you next time.